Felipe always knew this day would come. A king preparing for the future. A father preparing for loss. But nothing could have readied him for the exact moment he learned his daughter, his firstborn, his heir, Princess Leonor, was getting married. And the truth behind that moment is far more emotional, far more complicated, and far more human than anyone outside the palace ever imagined. Because what the world sees is a king. But what happened that day revealed the man behind the crown. Leonor walked into his office with a calmness he didn't immediately understand. He looked up from the documents on his desk, offering her the warm smile he always reserved for his daughters. Spain's future queen. His little girl. The person who had given him strength through some of the darkest years of the monarchy. He expected a routine conversation. He expected a report about her training. He expected a question about one of her royal duties. He did not expect his heart to drop. The moment she sat down, he felt it, something shifting, something heavy. Leonor's eyes held a softness he had only seen once before, the day she confessed she wanted to serve Spain not just as a princess but as a woman with a voice and a destiny. And then she said the words that cut through the room like a sudden wind. "Papa, I'm getting married." For a second, Felipe didn't breathe. Not because he was unprepared to hear she was in love. He had known for months. He had seen the way her face lit up. The way she protected the relationship from the political noise. The way she guarded her future with both tenderness and determination. But hearing it, hearing the finality, hearing the certainty, hearing the adulthood in her voice, was different. He felt the crown and the fatherhood collide inside him. In that instant, every memory flashed through his mind like lightning. Leonor taking her first steps in the Zarzuela corridors. Leonor clinging to his hand at her first public event. Leonor reading her first speech, her voice shaking, his hand resting on her back to steady her. Leonor taking the oath to defend the Constitution, standing tall, her eyes full of promise. And now she stood before him, ready to build a life beyond him. He tried to speak, but his voice tightened in his throat. He was King Felipe VI, calm, composed, measured. He was not supposed to show heartbreak. Not even to himself. But a father feels what a father feels, even in silence. Leonor waited, her eyes searching his face, reading every flicker of emotion. She wasn't just telling him she was getting married. She was telling him she was stepping into her own future. And here was the first curiosity loop. Why did this moment shake Felipe so deeply when he had always known it would arrive? The answer lies in the quiet tension the palace never talks about, because for Felipe, Leonor wasn't just a daughter. She was the anchor of his reign. She was the reassurance that everything he endured had meaning. She was the one thing he believed Spain would trust long after he was gone. Losing even a fraction of her felt like losing balance. But the story didn't end there. Felipe finally gathered his strength. He stood, walked toward her slowly, and placed his hands gently on her shoulders. His voice, when it came, was soft. "Tell me everything." And that simple sentence unraveled another layer to the story. Because the king wasn't asking for palace details. He wasn't asking about public expectations, alliances, or constitutional implications. He was asking like a father. Leonor took a breath and told him everything. How she met the man she loved. How their connection deepened quietly, respectfully, out of the public gaze. How he supported her role and understood her responsibility. How he cared for her not because she was future queen, but because she was Leonor, the young woman who loved fiercely but lived cautiously. As she spoke, Felipe felt something unexpected, pride. A deep, overwhelming pride in the woman she had become. Mature, steady, thoughtful, brave. But pride did not erase heartbreak. Because as she spoke, Felipe realized something he had avoided confronting. Leonor wasn't his little girl anymore. Not the child running through palace gardens. Not the teenager studying late into the night. Not the nervous young woman preparing for her first major address. She was a woman ready to begin a new journey. And here came the next curiosity loop. Why was this moment harder for Felipe than any political crisis or royal scandal he had ever faced? The reason was simple. A crisis is external. Marriage is personal. A crisis demands a king. Marriage takes a father. Leonor finished her story with a single question that shattered what remained of his composure. "Papa, are you happy for me?" Not, "Do you approve?" Not, "Will Spain accept him?" Not, "What does this mean for my position?" She didn't ask as a future queen. She asked as his daughter. Felipe swallowed hard. His eyes glistened, not with weakness but with a love he had never tried to hide from her. He sat beside her, reached for her hand, and answered with quiet honesty. Leonor, I am happy for you. More than you know. But I need a moment. Not because I doubt your choice, but because I realize, I must let you go. Leonor's eyes softened. She leaned on him, just as she had done when she was small, and for a moment they stayed in silence, the king and his heir, the father and his daughter, 2 generations of monarchy sharing a private wound no protocol could soften. But the moment wasn't just emotional, it carried political weight. Felipe knew that her marriage would reshape the royal family. It would redefine alliances. It would open new scrutiny. Spain would question every detail, who the man was, what his intentions were, what his presence meant for the monarchy. And this led to the next loop. Why was Felipe already bracing for national reaction? Because he remembered the storm that followed his own marriage. He remembered the endless comparisons, the rumors, the pressure placed on Letizia, the impossible expectations, the criticism that came from both inside and outside the palace. He didn't want Leonor to face that alone. But as he studied her expression, steady, grounded, peaceful, he realized she was stronger than he had been at her age. She had grown watching a monarchy survive turbulence. She had spent years preparing for the throne. She had developed a calm resilience that he admired. Felipe exhaled slowly, a breath heavy with acceptance. Have you told your mother? He asked. Leonor smiled faintly. Not yet. I wanted to tell you first. That confession touched him deeply. She had come to him, the father, not the king, because she knew he would understand the weight behind her decision. It was a gesture of love, of trust, of the bond they had built through years of shared duty and quiet conversations. And here came another loop. Why did Leonor choose to tell Felipe first? Because his approval mattered in a way no state document could replicate. Because his love gave her courage. Because the man who had guided her through every royal milestone was the one she wanted beside her in the most personal one. Felipe nodded. Let's tell her together. They stood. And for the first time that day, Felipe felt a fragile peace. Not because the heartbreak was gone, but because he realized something profound. He wasn't losing Leonor. He was gaining the next chapter of her life. He walked behind her toward the door, watching the strength in her posture, the confidence in her steps. She was ready. Ready for love. Ready for responsibility. Ready for the future. And in that silent walk, Felipe accepted a truth parents across the world eventually face: children grow. Children leave. But love remains. As Leonor opened the door, Felipe whispered words she never expected. I'm proud of you, hija. More than you will ever know. She turned, her eyes shining, and hugged him tightly. For a moment, the king disappeared. Only the father remained. And that, exactly that, is why the palace walls still remember the day Leonor told her father she was getting married. Not because it caused chaos. Not because it shifted royal plans. But because it revealed the most intimate truth of all. Behind every monarch is a heartbeat. Behind every crown is a parent. And behind every royal announcement is a moment the world never sees.